Right, we're recording. So thank you all for joining. This is the Global Accessibility Awareness Day Bitcoin Design Jam Kickoff Session, something like that. So I'm pretty excited about this. Thank you all for joining here. And I do hope we can make a little bit of a difference because I think this topic, I mean, I've been doing this digital stuff for 20 years, and it's always been the side topic that most people just don't want to touch, which is really a bit unfortunate. But maybe we can raise some awareness here, and I think that's why this day exists. And we don't have to do much if everyone just chips in just a little bit. I think we can make a difference. And speaking with DMing with a blind person, a blind Bitcoiner recently, there really seems to be some need to fix a few things here. So maybe we can do that. But I'm not an accessibility expert. So I wanted to start by, if you want to go around, if we want to go around and just share a little bit. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if we can all share a little bit about why we're here today and what you're trying to do, and regards accessibility, how much what you're working on, what you'd like to chip in. That will also help then make this call more useful. And also, for the rest of the day, if some people want to go together, like I would, for example, like to review later on the Bitcoin Design Guide, the website, and just check for accessibility issues. Maybe also look at another wallet or so, see if I can make some improvements. If some people want to get hands on later, I think that would also help us if we know where everyone's at. Does anyone want to kick us off here?
Everyone's a little shy today. Satyam.
Satyam, go ahead.
Hello.
Hey Satyam, how's it going? You are,
Uh,
yeah. Oh, please go ahead. Didn't want to interrupt you.
yeah. So I'm Satyam. Probably this is my first meet with all of you. I've joined in Google in summer of bit through summer of Bitcoin here at Bitcoin Design. Uh, I'll be working on creating a Lightning wallet for accessible for visually disabled people for the next couple of months, wherein I'll be diving deep into how we can make the whole experience for blind people a little more accessible so that they all can use. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to work with all of you.
Awesome. That's a super cool initiative. And do you have prior experience with accessibility?
I have incident as my friend is a blind person, so I know how they used to. So they really have some hard time, experiencing with touch enabled devices. So I know the exact problem, and yeah, I'm exploring this particular field.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yep, yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, just to touch off what I'm Mo here, also from the Bitcoin design community. 2 years, I think a year ago, Christoph and I kicked off our first tests on Lightning wallets in the community, and that was the first time I think anyone had ever done something like that.
Hmm.
We're still learning. We're still very much students, so I felt like I'm still learning. I feel like there's still a lot to learn. Satyam's going to be working in public in the accessibility channel. We're going to learn from him, and yeah, looking forward to solving this problem and to creating a bit more activity around this problem in the ecosystem. I'm a UX researcher, by the way, and I throw the ball, because I'm gonna start throwing the bouncy ball around. I throw it to Bus.
Oh, really? It's too early for that, Mo. Good morning. My name is Bas. I'm one of the janitors for BTC Pay server, together with Pavlnex. And today I bring you also Pedge with me. He's our support god for BTC Pay server. So if there's any questions or support issues or anything which might go along with accessibility as well, Petch is probably our first man in line who sees most of those things. Of course, Pav talks a lot with the Bitcoin design community, and he's very active in there. So we get a lot from them from him as well. But me and Petch are here today for representing BTC Pay Server in that. So if we can be of any service, or if there is any feedback for us, or if we can test our software a little bit better, we're here for that today, specifically, of course. And yeah, you can reach both of us in our own Mattermost, of course, from BTC Pay Server. If there's any questions for the easiest reach to us. But yeah, that's me. I'll kick off the ball to Petya to introduce himself as my companion today from BTC Pay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Bas. Yeah, there's not much left to say here. Yeah, also, I think it's an important topic, and I'm very glad that we have this round here, and I'm very interested to see what comes out of it. Thank you. And I pass the ball to, I don't know who wants to talk. MTG, maybe?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is, my full name is Mohammed Tahir Ghazal. I'm a web developer working with PeakShift currently. Our main project is Bolt Fun. You probably heard of it before. Yeah, about a year ago, I did not know a lot about accessibility, but recently, at Bolt Fun specifically, we started noticing that yes, in general, there are a lot of websites that are not accessible, and in specific Bitcoin websites or application and Nostr websites and application. So we've been going into a dive into the accessibility rabbit hole. We tried to fix various stuff on Bolt Fun, and me on the side, I also tried to fix some other websites that I previously worked on, learn more about accessibility and etc. And it's really a rabbit hole that you learn more and you discover that there is always more. But I think it's very important. Especially it's kind of one of the things that are shocking to me is how little people care about accessibility, and I was one of them, because you don't know how much it affects and how many people are affected by it really. You expect initially that okay, people with accessibility are a very small minority, but then you discover that they are almost 1 billion, around 15% of the world population. When I started looking into this topic, I saw some shocking facts about 1 out of 5 persons suffer from dyslexia, which is a learning and reading disorder. 1 out of 12 men suffer from some kind of color blindness, which is they maybe not full color blindness, maybe just green, red, maybe just blue, yellow, etc. But yeah, this topic, it's much more important than what you would initially think before learning about it. So yeah, that's why I'm excited about this. I kick the ball to Kamal.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Kemal from Galoy. We're building Bitcoin banking infrastructure, free and open source software, and developing the Blink wallet, formerly known as the Bitcoin Beach wallet, and yeah, trying to build a Lightning wallet, custodial one that's accessible and tailored towards bottom-up adoption, and especially targeting very non-technical audiences who want to onboard to Bitcoin and Lightning and start using it to send and receive payments. And yeah, we have a very broad audience, and therefore try to make it as easy and accessible as possible. So recently we've been adding a lot of languages so people that don't speak English can use it. But there is also a lot of people that can't read at all that should be able to transact with Lightning and Bitcoin. And yeah, just curious to see what everyone is working on and learn from people who have been thinking around these topics. And I pass it on to Lab.
Good morning. I just got thrown into this call by Bass, so yeah, I am not prepared at all, but let's go. I am the lead designer for Peach Bitcoin, and we try making peer-to-peer Bitcoin buying and selling accessible. Sorry about my bird. Accessible for everyone, so that also involves a lot of usability, accessibility, and user experience. So yeah, that's my story, and I think Ja is the only one that hasn't gone yet.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Jordan. I'm from Australia. So it's about 5 p.m. here. So forgive me if you can hear some kids running around in the background. But yeah, I'm from Wallet of Satoshi. And I'm interested to see some of the tips and tricks for adding some, improving the accessibility of our wallet and also other apps in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Really interested in seeing especially what kind of low-hanging fruit there is that we can really knock over as quick as possible and make changes to our wallet to help people use our wallet from all different walks of life. That's about it.
Awesome. That's a really, really good group here. Thanks all for joining. we have quite a few time zones here. So I thought that was super interesting. I have a few things on the topic to kind of kick us off. And so but I wanted this to be conversational, so feel free to just interrupt or raise your hand or ask questions or so as we go. As Mo already mentioned, in Bitcoin design, Bitcoin design has been around for 3 years now. Accessibility was not really a thing we looked much into for the first year and a half or so. There were just more fundamental things. Like, it's weird to say that, right? Accessibility is very fundamental, but we didn't get around to that. There are other topics we also haven't gotten around to. And then last year, Mo and I decided we need an accessibility page in the guide. We did a lot of testing. We educated ourselves on the topic. We're not experts, but I think we got some of the good basics down. And then I'd like to just share some of the stuff that we found. But the first thing that I wanted to start with is actually the Apple accessibility page, which I'm going to make myself small here, which you can see in the background. I'm going to reload the page here because I think this is very well framed. They basically say, make it yours. So with accessibility, a lot of times you have accessibility parking lot, there's like a person in a wheelchair or so. But I think this framing is much better. Like, make it yours, make it big, make it simple. It's all about adjusting this experience to just how you want it to be, right? And if I always snoop around when I'm in the subway or bus or airplane. I like to observe how other people use their phones. I don't care about, what they look at or what they do. I'm just interested in the human interaction part. And I found it surprising how many people make text bold, make text big, use other accessibility features. I know when I watch TV or so, a lot of times I turn on the subtitles because, I don't know, it might be from, some accent or sort of dialect that I can't quite make out, or sometimes it's just more convenient. Like this accessibility stuff, it's like the making it yours, I think, is a very good framing for this. The second thing here that ties in with this, and I hope you can see my video clearly here, because I'm also going to share this Figma link here if you want to follow along here. So this is what you can see here. I set up an Android tablet recently which I'm using for testing applications. And so if you look at the screen here, this is when you get a brand new Android device, the first thing that you see, this is what you see. And as you see at the bottom, it says accessibility here. So like from when you start using a modern device or operating system, from the very beginning, you can make it yours. You can adjust it to your needs. And here is a screenshot of the accessibility settings in iOS. And it's really impressive the amount of features and options you have. And each one of those, if you go into, you have even more options. Plus, you can even set application specific. Like here's just a quick test one that I set up. So let's say I use Blixt Wallet, and I want Blixt Wallet to have, I don't want any motion there. I want to have increased contrast because that design for me is just not working or so. I can adjust these things. So it's here's the here, this is for Mac OS. This here is for Android. It's pretty impressive. I think, when I started this design stuff a long time ago, it was basically like, oh, you need to have enough color contrast or so, right? But and then there was this push to always have black text on white background or so. But accessibility is just way more. And for example, Apple announced some new features for iOS 17 now, which so for certain diseases where people over time lose their voice, they can now read a 15-minute text and it generates an AI voice for them. So when they lose their voice, they can still just type text and it will read the text in messages, in phone calls and whatnot, so they can still communicate that same way with their family. And that's just super sophisticated. So I think accessibility tech is pretty impressive these days. The good news is that operating systems do a lot of the groundwork here. And as an application developer, I think you need to get some basics right, but I don't think it's that crazy. The next thing I wanted to share was how to set up a device for testing. But does anyone have thoughts or questions at this point?
Also, I just wanted to mention as well, because Satyam is doing his research now, and one of the ideas that he has is Braille support. And I just actually noticed that this morning that there's actually also Braille. There's an option to turn on Braille in these. I think I screen captured it somewhere, but I'm just trying to locate it on the. There's an option for Braille as well in the accessibility settings. So that might be an interesting one to look at as well. Just mentioning that for Satyam as well.
Yeah, we have something called as Braille keyboard as well, wherein I guess there was a video on YouTube where someone was using Braille keyboard to write text on his phone. So this is also a step we can look at.
Yes, good one. So the video that you're mentioning is this one here, and I would really recommend everyone to watch this. It's by BuzzFeed News from 5 years ago, and it's I don't know. I thought it was just very impressive just how good these devices are and how smoothly people use them, and also stuff like when you're a blind person, you have to basically have the text on the screen read out to you. They go by something like 160 words per minute, which is super, super fast. Like if you and I listen to this, we can't make anything out. But for them, they're just so quick with things. And how they use subways, how they identify bills that they have in front of them, which is actually an American problem because the dollar bills, they're all the same size. In Europe and other countries, they're different sizes based on how much it is. So that video I would really highly recommend. And it does show someone using a Braille keyboard. That's another thing where there are all these external tools that sometimes people use if they can't. You can think of what's the famous, wasn't astrologer Stephen Hawking? He was tied to a wheelchair and whatnot. He could only use his finger a little bit, but he was still able to, communicate and write and do all these things. That was he could do that because there were all these this sophisticated tech around here. let's then quickly take a look at how to set things up. So I'm going to go to the. I'm going to share this link here as well. This here is the accessibility page in the Bitcoin Design Guide. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there are some links on how to set up. There's one called Set Up iPhone or iPad for iOS mobile accessibility testing, and also one for testing on Android devices. And I'll just go over that real quick because it may sound complicated, but it's actually really that simple. So let me switch back to Figma here. I need to make sure I manage my screens properly. So if you're on iPhone, you go to Settings, you scroll down to Accessibility Shortcut, and you set that up. And once you have an accessibility shortcut, then if you press the power button 3 times in a row, you get this nifty little menu. Which, do I have a, yeah, it looks like this. So that is the accessibility shortcut. And that makes testing really, really simple. So once you've enabled this, you go to any application that you want, you press your power button 3 times, this menu shows up, you turn on voice control or magnifier or increase contrast, it turns it on, and then you can see what it looks like. You use the application with those features enabled. So really, really convenient. So you do that simply by, in accessibility, turning on the accessibility shortcut. Then in accessibility shortcut, you have a few options here. There are all these features here. The ones that I test with mostly are voice control and voiceover. Those are for basically when you can't see, right? You need the screen reader to read things out to you, what's on the screen. You select one thing at a time and you interact with that way. And if you watch that video about the blind people using iPhones, they actually have the screen completely turned off. It's completely black because it's useless to them, right? Which I guess is good for their battery life. But then they just use swiping and tapping to navigate. So voice control, the voiceover, and then, this is so convenient that I would really recommend taking half an hour or so, just turning things on, turning things off, playing with them. You can't break anything. It just looks a little different. And you really get to feel what that experience is like and how it changes the experience. In voiceover settings, something I found pretty important here is if you go all the way down, you want to enable the caption panel. And then under voice control, you want to go into overlay and enable item names here in this continuous overlay. And I'll show why in a second. Then I'll focus on voiceover because I feel like that's one of the most essential ones. So as I mentioned, if you can't see or what's on the screen, or you can't swipe, then you need a different way to select stuff. And I think everyone knows that on the desktop, if you use a website, you can just tab through things, right? You just tab, and then you hit space, and then you select whatever's selected, or you activate whatever's selected. That's pretty much the same thing that's happening here. So one UI element is selected at a time. You swipe left to select the previous one. You swipe right to select the next one. Whenever something's selected, it reads out to you what it is. And then you tap to read that thing out again. You double tap to activate it. So if you can think of this as an alternate API, it's like your application makes a list of UI elements available to the screen reader. And then you have this super basic API that's just like next, previous, activate, or read out. Those are kind of the 4 options. And that's a really important thing to support because, like I said, an API, you can, with a tech API, you can build all kinds of stuff with it. You can interact with many different ways with it. And so it is here. You can swipe with it. There are these, or swipe and interact. You can speak to your device and it executes these commands, or you can have a plug-in, some other type of controller or so, like a joystick or so. And when you do that, here's what I did just a little bit earlier. So here I just went to Zeus. I like Zeus. Also, Zeus put out a 1 million sat bounty to help improve accessibility. Their Mo has actually an issue in the Zeus GitHub repo with a few things to fix. If anyone's interested in fixing those and getting some sats, stacking them, here you go. So here's how I usually test. So go to Zeus. I triple click my power button. I get this menu show up. I turn on voice control. I turn on voiceover. And then I get a screen that looks like this. So you see now this bottom panel that says screenshot button that highlights what's currently selected. Then the item, what is it called? Layer panel overlays. That this tells me, like these little gray boxes with the tooltips, they tell me what the API, what the screen reader knows about this interface. So you can imagine a blind person cannot see the actual UI. They can only basically see and navigate, not really see, but navigate these tooltips here. And you already see a problem here. This tooltip here in the center shows, I see the pencil icon, blind person doesn't see it, but there's no description. So the tooltip does not know what this thing is. The screen reader, it will just say probably button, or it might not even say anything about it. So if you're a blind person, you're like, what does this do? No one knows. Well, a visual person knows. Here you have a question mark here, so telling you that something's missing. Here you can see the back button's not clear, the little X button's not clear. The QR code itself is actually not selectable at all, so that doesn't exist for a blind person. So they don't even know that this exists on the screen. They'll have to go through the other UI elements. Something good, something that Zeus does well, is when you tap copy invoice, it changes the text here to copied, and it actually reads it out to you. That's something you also have to instruct the screen reader to do. Like, something changed here, this is what happened. And for BTC Pay, this is something, I created a video last week with a few things. If you're on the BTC Pay checkout screen, there's also a little copy button. And when you press it, it changes to an icon, but it doesn't tell you what it does. Like, there's no title, it doesn't tell you what this button does. And when you press it, it doesn't tell you that something's changed. So if you're relying on that, well, first of all, you don't even know what this button does. And even if you press it, it doesn't tell you what just happened. So that makes it not accessible. OPAF here is awesome. And we have a whole BTC Pay gang here. Let's actually talk about this real quick. If you want to test a website and you're on a Mac, all you have to go is in accessibility settings here, and you can turn on VoiceOver. There's also a shortcut here. Quickly press Touch ID 3 times while holding the Command key. And if you do that, you also can, then you just use arrow keys left, right to navigate. You press space. I can also share a video that I created for BTC Pay to show exactly how that works with some of those issues. And if you want Android instructions, they're also here. So you really, I'm not a Windows user, I can't help with that. But with everything else, I can help you set up the testing environment. I'll just go over a couple more things that we found in testing. So here in Breeze, if you rely on screen reader and voice control, you are stuck in this modal. You can never escape it. You have to restart the application because there's no close button to it. It just, like, there's just no close button. The interesting thing here is, so Blue Wallet has this solved pretty well. There's no close button in Blue Wallet, but you can select like the whole modal and activate it, and then it disappears. There's like a separate full screen element. But this one here, it's a dead end, right? You can never leave this. What is it called? The House of the Rising Sun? Hotel California, that's what it was. You can get in there, but you can never leave. Here, for Wallet of Satoshi, what was this one? I think this was the similar. Oh, this was another one. This is actually something that happens on websites quite a lot, and I also saw this in Wallet of Satoshi. So you see, there's an overlay here, but I can still select. So the receive and scanner, like what's in the background, is still selectable. So when that's called, I think, just focus management, I think. So when you have an overlay of something, then you should not, like everything else behind it should not be selectable anymore. It should be blocked. For example, you can see that in Breeze here. So with my tabbing, I can select everything in this modal, but I cannot get out of it, right? I have to close it first to get back to this content that I just came from. So something here for Wallet of Satoshi, that's something to consider. Here's one by Moon. This is a tough one because this little arrow is the only way to access your transaction history, and you cannot select it. It's simply not selectable. So anyone with accessibility needs, they have no transaction history in this application. It just doesn't exist for them at all. And it's a very simple fix. And I'll just talk about that real quick, and then I'll finally shut up. A fix for something like this. Here's something I fixed for Blue Wallet. You just have to add a label like this. Like you have to add something like accessibility role equals button, which then communicates to the operating system, to the screen reader, like this element is a button. It should act like a button. I can select it. And then accessibility label, the LOC dot underscore dot, that's how they manage localization. So it grabs whatever language you've selected. It grabs the text that's kind of identified as the more text. This specifically is the kind of ellipsis dot 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 button that you see in a lot of screens in the header, and that previously had no. It just had no explanation, right? It just said, I think it just announced itself as button. So here I just went in and I added this label, and that made this button accessible and useful. Similarly, here's a snippet of code from the Bitcoin Design Guide website. We have this logo in the footer, and on the web, you just use labels like area-label, and then you just say what should be, like you describe what this image here is, what should be read out. So it's, this is the stuff, this is really, really easy stuff to fix the majority of this. You just have to go through, you test your application 15 minutes, you sit on your sofa, you just click around. It tells you, like, you see something like this. It doesn't tell you what it does, what it is. You just add this one attribute, and then, it's fixed. I fixed a whole bunch of labels in Blue Wallet, and I couldn't even get the local development environment working. The team was super nice to help me there, but I was able to just add these labels, and I fixed a ton of these things very quickly. It really wasn't a big deal. The two other things here is, as I mentioned earlier, for customizing, for websites, for example, sometimes people say, well, you need black text on white background. You need a lot of contrast. But the operating systems feed the user's personal settings into the applications, including websites. Like prefers contrast is a media query. If a user is enabled that they like more contrast generally, then the website can know about this. You can detect this super easily, and then you just beef up the contrast, right? So as designers, we sometimes, we really want like this light gray text, and we want like these really subtle gray tones and drop shadows or whatnot. And for some people, it just doesn't work. So I feel like a good thing here is we design something that works for 95% of people, and 98 ideally or more. But I think at some point we can kind of expect that people use accessibility features if they really want to customize these things. So prefers contrast, I don't think really this is used a lot, but there are other features like that. Like websites can know whether the user prefers a dark theme or a light theme, where they want to have disabled animations and transparency and all these things. And another part with this is relevant to the modal stuff we just talked about. Like there's an HTML dialog element, and so if you have like an overlay, a dialog, a modal, you just use that, right? And it comes with all the accessibility stuff, like pressing escape to close it, locking the focus into this element. You just use that, and then it does things for you. So some of it is just just supporting what's there, using the right elements, having some good practices, and making that part of your development, your design routine, and maybe your development routine. And then just one more thing, and then I'll be quiet here. So with code, this is something that I added or used in Blue Wallet. React actually has this accessibility linter. So there are code linters that make sure your code follows all the whatever standards that the team has decided on. There's also accessibility linters. So it will just, before you can even commit your code, or you can just run this separately, it goes through all of your code and it just checks if there's anything missing, any accessibility labels. And then you don't have to guess, you don't have to test as much. You should still test, but it makes things pretty convenient. All right, and now I will be quiet. I hope that was useful here. So I'd like to open it up. What questions are there? What would you like to do next?
Christoph, you covered a lot, and I just I want to reiterate that it is really easy to test. Like it's so easy to test an application, because like I'm gonna drop the link in here for like it's like a 2-minute YouTube video. Pretty much, if you watch that video, you can basically set up your device, whether it's an iPad or an Apple phone, and you can just pretty much start getting testing today. In the beginning, when I first started testing, I'll be honest, we were still learning. I didn't know what I was doing. And we were kind of just learning as we were going along. We were learning how to document stuff. So pretty much for me, when I started, I just watched the YouTube video and I was like, okay, I'm going to set up my iPhone. All right. And I'm going to choose a wallet to test. And then I chose Blue Wallet. I think that was Blue Wallet. So I'm going to just share the screen here very quickly. So, I kept things really simple. I just made a note. Hey, I'm testing on an iPhone. Phoenix is already installed. And the goal is I want to send myself some sats using the swap in feature. So I pretty much watched the YouTube video and I start testing. And I'm pretty much just making notes as I'm going along. I'm making notes of, what the screen's telling me, what the screen's showing. And I'm just making notes. And, there's different ways of doing it. You can record your screen, so you can actually make a video of the screen. Or like me, I keep things really simple. I just take a pen and a paper and I start making notes. And you can pretty much just go through each screen, make notes, keep it really simple and just make notes. And then, as you come across the different screens, just see, what's missing, what's not missing. For example, a big thing which came up over here is when someone actually received funds in this wallet, they had no knowledge that they'd actually received funds. Like that's a pretty big thing, that if a blind person was using this wallet, they wouldn't actually know that they received funds. So you can imagine that it's quite a serious thing. Accessibility. So yeah, that's pretty much how we test. And if you want to go a little bit even more in depth, I'm going to share this one here instead. So this was a Phoenix wallet as well, and I'll share this also in the tab as well. I make a summary of the findings. Time is being read out as numbers, not as an actual time. The copy button is labeled as a tab button, so the screen reader reads it out as tabs. The pop-up modal for the receive screen is not read out by the voiceover. The QR code is not acknowledged by the screen reader. DESC is read out as DESC, however, it is the description of the transaction. So like this, you can just make summaries of what you're doing. You can say, this is the interaction I did. I swipe my 2 fingers down. So like this, you can really document it a bit more in depth, but that's really not necessary. You can keep things really simple. And yeah, so just wanted to say it's really easy testing out these applications. And that's it for me. I'll also shut up now. And just opening the floor to any questions, because I know this might be like a lot to take on for someone who's maybe never tested before, or so just wondering if there's any questions or if there's anything that you guys are thinking about.
Well, I have a question. So, in the whole meet, we were talking about how we'll, set up the whole environment for testing for accessibility. Uh, where I am working is I am starting from scratch. So I'll be iterating, I'll be brainstorming with ideas and coming up with Figma low fidelity screens. Okay. So the question is, how will I test? I was thinking like, how can I test it with actually blind people? I would like to, have your opinion or ideas on how we can test things out with Figma designs. So what the problem is, in the whole app, which is actually coded and is published in the is published or live, we have the accessibility settings which we can include and use to test the things out. But this is not the case with Figma designs or low fidelity designs. So, like, how we can test those things with the actual blind person? This is the question.
That is a good one. And I have not looked into this deeply, but I am aware that Figma is doing quite a few things to make Figma accessible. I've also read about various plugins that exist for Figma for accessibility. So there's probably a good amount of stuff that can be done. I mean, with any type of fake image-based prototyping, you always run into certain limits. So you might have
Yeah.
to create very specific prototypes for certain things. But yeah, that's a good thing to dive into.
Figma is doing a lot for making the whole system accessible for the user, which I as a designer can use. But the question here is, how will I test my design? So I don't think there is a lot of things to include to make my prototype accessible to people.
Have you? I mean, that's something worth trying. Just Figma has a mobile app. Let's say you want to test a mobile app,
Yep.
and through which you can render or play or interact with your
Hmm.
prototypes. And then I
Yep.
think main thing is just create a simple prototype or grab one that already exists,
Hmm.
pull it up in the app, enable those accessibility settings, and then just see how well it's supported. That should be a good starting point to quickly figure out how capable this is.
Hmm. Okay. I'll try that. Uh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Test accessibility. I'm putting a notes in here as well. Yeah, good one. Yeah, cool. What else? So for the others, what would be the most helpful for you to do right now?
Yeah, what feels like the smallest piece to bite off in terms of like learning more about this, or like what could we do as a community to, I don't know, make this easier for people to do or to test, or that kind of thing.
And for the project teams, are you open sourcing these effort? Are you looking for contributors, or are you? I'm not sure what everyone's status is and how open source they are. Or are you trying to tackle this internally and would like to have maybe a private session or so? We can also, like, we have the whole day. It's accessibility day, right? Also happy to hop on more one-on-one calls later and talk through specific projects.
I can only speak for BTP Server, of course, but BTP Server is full open source software, everything to it, and always feel free to shoot us issues or talk with us on whatever channel you can find us. We basically, every time we do a major release, we do a testing round, and maybe for us as a team, it should be a thing where we include half an hour of turning on all those features and just don't look at the screen but listen to the screen instead. um, I don't know how I would perfectly fit it in yet, but I think once we find a structure to going through every page we have, and I think mainly right now it sounds like customer facing screens should be very important for us specifically as a payment gateway, of course. So maybe we should start there. I don't fully know yet, but it sounds like we can include this to our normal rounds of testing for a major release. Why not turn on all those features and see what happens?
Yeah, and I think ideally this is just a best practice that we all get used to. Just like there are code linters, just like we have a design system now. This is ideally something that's just normal practice, and we don't even think about it. We just kind of do it, right? That's really the end goal. I think it would still be, and this is kind of a shout out to anyone who has these, who uses accessibility settings for whatever reason. To share their experience and maybe also help test these things if they want to be part of the testing process, or development, or design process, and give input. Totally open call would be amazing to have some people who can just instantly say, this works for me or this doesn't work for me. I think that'd be super helpful.
I would like to share that like when we at WorldFun started like trying to fix the accessibility issues, we compiled all the stuff that we fixed, like diagnosing the problem and fixing them in a kind of a workshop video that we still haven't actually released it yet, but I think you can see it here. It's kind of live work where I was like looking into what are the accessibility issues in the website and fixing them one by one. And yes, I think like because this kind of videos, I think they are useful, but they do not exist really on the, like, you cannot find many videos like this on YouTube where you can see practical stuff and fix real problems. So I think if like other developers can also do something like that, it would be like very helpful for people who have not like, because some of this stuff, like fixing some of the accessibility issues, some of the problems are simple, but some, like for other more complicated components or in application they call them widgets, making them accessible is sometimes a little bit complicated. Or there has, for example, making a form accessible. At first it might appear to be simple, but when you like think about errors, validation errors, how you would tell the user that the errors are now fixed, if there are notifications, if there are instructions, things can get a little bit complicated with these parts. So like having good resources teaching that would be very useful, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you just uploaded that video yesterday. I'll have to look at that. Seems like you dug in pretty deeply. And this is where the accessibility page in the Bitcoin Design Guide, we should also keep adding more resources there. I think we already have a good amount of stuff. We have this 2.5-minute video about how like a quick and dirty mobile app test, and then having longer work sessions. We also had a learning Bitcoin and design session about testing a year ago or so. So we just need to keep creating these useful resources and make it really as simple as possible. And especially making starting with it as simple as possible, because I think it can be intimidating sometimes.
Okay.
How about some of the other wallet teams here? How are you feeling at the moment on this topic?
I'm curious to check out. Well, I haven't played around with accessibility features myself. I'm curious how well this has been considered by our designers already. So I'm curious to do the test with Android and see if everything is labeled properly, and definitely nudge them to check and do the tests and see if everything can talk back to, for example, vision impaired people. And yeah, so very insightful.
Awesome. You know that we tested. Let's see, we tested blockchain.com, Phoenix, Moonbreeze, Zeus, Blockstream, Water, Satoshi, BTC Pay, and I don't know, probably some other ones too. And we did find that it's usually the same stuff. It's usually the same issues that we kind of outlined also in the accessibility page. So very common. Let's see on.
So would you say that basically labeling everything properly so it can play nicely with the accessibility features is the quickest, lowest hanging fruit, the quickest win to make an app accessible?
I think so. I think that's like I mentioned earlier. It's like a new API for if you can't see or touch, then the operating system has an understanding of what's on the screen, what each element is, and then can communicate that in whatever ways needed to the user. It's like a very powerful second API. So I think that is a really essential thing to consider. And then second, after that is probably ensuring that whatever settings a user has chosen in the operating system, that those kind of get picked up by the application. So, for example, I've seen a lot of people in subways and whatnot to enable bold text up here or larger text, and that's pretty simple stuff. I think in iOS, it's just called dynamic type support, where you just need to say, not specify a specific type size, but you could just say, hey, I'm using dynamic type here. Here's kind of the default that I want. But if the user has adjusted it, then it's just going to render it a little bit bigger or smaller. So I would say the screen reader is an essential one that's also very easy to fix. And then picking up all of the other things that could maybe be a second priority.
Bus had a question here with in the chat. He says, is there a difference in how well the accessibility toggles work on mobile compared to desktop? Off the top of my head, personally, I've only ever tested on mobile, and we only really focused on testing open source Bitcoin and Lightning wallets. So I've not actually tested on a desktop before, so I don't know how accessibility toggles work on a desktop, but I'll hand the baton over to Christoph on this one.
So Apple does traditionally a very good job at all this accessibility stuff and also keeping it consistent across different devices. Of course, on the desktop, you have very different input. You have a mouse, you have a keyboard. I'm not a Windows user, I'm not a Linux user, so I don't really know. I'm sure there are quite a few differences there. But maybe someone else has more experience on that or wants to dig deeper into that. yeah, it probably depends on your user base. But yeah, I have already so many test devices lying around. Maybe I need to get a Windows device.
Well, I
for
am
testing.
on Windows actually. Uh, like as you mentioned, Christoph, earlier, like the system itself, it provides the user with options to toggle some preferences, like high contrast or prefer dark theme or reduced motion to reduce the animations, etc. But actually, it's like up to the website developers to pick these preferences and whether to like change something in the website based on them or not. Like I think in mobile it's more enforced. For example, I think on mobile, if the user wants to make the fonts bigger or smaller, it's easy. But on the website developers can like build the website in a wrong way, so the fonts will not get larger or smaller, even if the user try to zoom in or out, for example, or even if he has reduced motion, the animations will still play. I'm not 100% sure, but I think on mobile it's more enforced.
Yeah, that is also a really tough thing, I think, for web development, because you're already dealing with responsive, so your screen has to work for 375 pixels wide up to 1900, and you're already dealing with different breakpoints and different sizes. And in addition, you might not even have those, so it might be smaller or bigger, the text and whatnot, and then it just could completely destroy your layout. So it's actually quite the sensitive. It can be a very sensitive thing to actually support all this stuff without the layout breaking. But I mean, the alternative is that someone just can't read it or use it at all, right? That's also not better to have it maybe a little bit of a broken layout, but be able to use it.
Yes, and one other thing is that when like with Windows on mobile, I think like on iPhone there is VoiceOver, which is embedded, and on Mac I think it's also VoiceOver, the default screen reader. But on Windows there is no like default screen reader. You choose which one. For example, NVDA or something like that. Most of the screen readers like work in a very similar way, but there are sometimes a few minor differences of how they interpret, how they like pronounce the stuff on screen, like similar to how different browsers used to like work differently in some edge cases. It's the same case with screen readers. So yeah, we have to also factor that in when working with that. But in general, they are becoming like much better than what they used to be. So yeah, this is becoming less of a problem.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're at the top of the hour now. We can keep going here if you'd like. Totally up to you. The other thing we can do, or we can also do it here if you'd like. If you are working on a specific project or so, you want help setting up your device, you want to test something right now together or so, then just shoot a message here or reach out in Discord or so, and we can just totally get that going right now to get things kicked off. And like I said earlier, hopefully we can make a little bit of a difference today, whether that's just talking and raising awareness or actually fixing things all over the place. Yeah, for example, the Blue Wallet team, there are a couple of open issues. If you look at the link that I shared here, the accessibility fix hit list, if someone wants to directly hop in some code and fix a few things, we've compiled kind of a list of issues that we filed. If someone wants to do that, what would you like to do? And also curious, if you don't want to do anything like with this group here today, like especially the wallet teams, like how do you want to go about this moving forward if you're open to sharing?
Pav is back as well. Nice to have you back.
As for me, I won't be able to work on this today probably, but thanks guys for the intro. It's it really doesn't look that difficult. So I'm excited to try how it will go on the extension. I suppose it will work similar like websites, right? The accessibility features. So I'm definitely planning to verify that. But I'm also starting this week. I started working on the Aldi mobile wallet, so I can make sure that the labels will be implemented from the get-go, from the beginning.
Super cool. We caught you at the right time then. And also, just to reiterate, we're dedicating most of the day to accessibility. So I'm just going to be working on accessibility stuff today, aside from the UX research call, which is also later today. But we're totally open to helping you guys set up stuff, testing. If you want us to test for you file issues, just message us. Yeah.
So a question maybe from my side then. I'd be happy to sit for, say, coming half an hour or so with either you or Christoph or anyone else from Bitcoin Design in that circumstance, to see what we can at least structure out for ourselves of how would we implement this for ourselves to test when we do the next round of testing for major release. That'd be helpful for us to at least make a start in that, in how do we structure this out to a proper way, and what would be the easiest way for us to do this with our community again, because also we are open source, of course, and we need the input from our users and help as well to test our app. So I'd be happy to sit with anyone who wants to do that.
Awesome. Yeah. So anyone else, like now's your time to speak. Kind of conversations happen. Now's your time to chime in. And if you want to do something together or not, or you just if you need to hop off, that's cool too. We can chat in Discord. But if no one else has anything, then we could just have that conversation right now, because that seems pretty relevant. It's like, how do you make this happen as a project, right? That's the question. How do you go about it? And for everyone hopping off, thank you so much for joining. Cool. Yeah, Bas, are you okay with just chatting on this? Oh, Ja or Ja, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, sorry, it's Jordan. Jordan here.
Jordan, yeah.
Should have put my proper name in. Sorry. Yeah, no, thanks, Christoph and Mo, for that. There was some good tips there, and I think here at Wallet of Satoshi we'll try and implement some of those pretty quickly. I did have a couple of just very quick technical questions. Mo, in the example you gave of a receive screen, and you said the user would never have even known that they'd received a payment.
Mm-hmm.
How would you suggest to fix that? What kind of element would you add?
Let me jump back to that screen just so that we can pull it up. There we go. Maybe we can talk through that problem together and try to solve it together, because I don't know if I have the... So here's the screen. Which wallet is this from? Well, it doesn't matter which wallet it's from, but it's just likely this other wallets that have the same. So this is the receive screen. I had all of the options turned on, as Christoph mentioned, to test on. As you can see here, the screen reader is reading this off as LC cross. This should actually read off as exit screen, so those are just really small, minor things. But here with the receive screen, this person's received money, received sats, and you can see here that it's just received. The date here, I guess the date is not even accessible as well, because there's no text on the screen. So the image reads out image check mark. The voiceover should read, you've received 10,000 sats on the 30th of June. So creating, I'm not a developer, but I'm just thinking out loud, creating something within the feedback. So labeling this in a way that it's going to read out, you have just received 10,000 sats and then the date afterwards. And also ensuring that when it's read out, it's not read out as 10000, because that we've seen that come up in a lot of the screen readers. It reads it out as 10000 as opposed to 10,000 sats. So I don't know how or if that's possible on the developmental side, but that would be really useful as a practical solution. But yeah, anyone else's thoughts on this would be also useful to hear.
Yeah, I think you got it right here. The first thing is the LC cross, that should just be close modal or close button. Then image checkmark. So images are a thing where you have it on the web also. On the web, you have alt tags, and you can set alt tags to empty, like it's just an empty string. And that instructs the screen reader. It tells them, there is an image here, but it's not important. You can just kind of skip it. You don't need to read anything. If you leave the alt tag out, then it doesn't know how to deal with it. But if you leave it empty, then it will just treat it as like, this is not important to read out, right? And then it might not even be selectable. So in this case, the screen pops up and it reads out to you, image checkmark. And you're like, what's going on here, right? Instead, this image should not be selectable. Maybe it should, the text received, maybe that should be the first thing that is selected. And you can instruct the screen reader also to read out something different than what's visually shown. Like you could say, receive 10,000 sats. While a visual user can piece it together from what they see, you can give the screen reader more of a sentence, which, if you look at the visual information here, received, date, and then plus 10,000 sat, visually, we are very capable of very quickly turning this into a coherent sentence or information. But if you have to navigate each of these things one by one, it's kind of tough. Like you're going to select received, then you select the date, then you're going to select just plus, like you're just going to hear plus, then you select the next thing, 10,000, then you're going to select the next thing, it just says sat, and then you have to and that is where it's really helpful to test this in person. Another tip here for iOS is if you triple tap your screen, I think twice or 3 times, it actually goes black. So you can't see, you have to rely on what you hear. And when you do that, you really kind of get a sense for how choppy some of these interactions can be. And like Mo said, there sometimes numbers get formatted in a way that there are spaces between the thousands, and then it just says 10, 0, 0, 0, right? And then it just gets pretty hard to follow if you test this out.
I think, top of mind, this is such a good question, is I think two large areas would be confirming receiving would be one to really focus on, and then confirming sending as well, because, those are really the two biggest pivotal moments for a user when they're on the application. Like if you can imagine, if you're a blind person and you're sending sats to someone, if you have no confirmation that that's actually going to that person, you're not going to do it. So from a really practical level, really focusing on the receive screen and really focusing on the send screen and providing as much feedback there as possible with all of these labels would be two areas that would really make a big difference to users.
Yeah, self-custodial onboarding is also a very tricky one. Let's say you have a 12-word seed phrase and it reads it out to everyone in the environment, totally unexpected. That's not great. But that's where you have cloud backup and some others, especially for Lightning, smaller amounts. I think that's fine. But if you're dealing with higher amounts, cold storage, on chain, then you need to be really, really sensitive with that aspect. So you don't just blurt out the seed phrase to the whole world. And something I also noticed is that when applications rely on default UI elements and style them differently, it's usually a lot better accessibility support. When there are these super unique custom elements like the account boxes in Blockstream Green, that's, or some other elements, that's where a lot of times during development or even during design, sometimes accessibility is just not really considered with these custom interactions. So if you have custom interactions, super custom UI elements with animations and whatnot in your UI, maybe make sure to check those.
It's also, thinking about your user base as well, because, if you put yourself in the user's shoes, you have to think at which moment, when a user is using My Wallet, at which moment are they the most vulnerable? And they're the most vulnerable when they're indeed, as Christoph pointed out, remembering their seed phrase, when they're receiving and when they're sending. So we're really just taking care of our users, our blind users, by making sure that at these moments that they know what's going on the interface, because practically speaking, if they don't know what's going on, they're not going to use it. At least for me, I'm not going to send someone sats if I don't know, if I have no confirmation of what's going on. So yeah, just keeping it very practical.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, good tips there. One other question I wanted to ask about something you mentioned, Christoph, was prefers contrast, the media option. So we use prefers color scheme, dark or light, in our app, and then use the user's setting. But we've never used prefers contrast before. Can you give me some examples of how that would be different? Like, what could prefers contrast be used to do to an app?
Let me see real quick. So I'm just I'll just give you an example. I'm gonna grab two screens here. Let me send them to my phone real quick, or to my device. Put them in here. So these are two screenshots. Whoop! Where did they go? Those are just, two screenshots I just took on my phone from the accessibility settings screen. Make it a little bit smaller. So that is with contrast. I just pressed the increase contrast button here. Hope you can see that well. And you instantly notice that all the gray elements are just a lot darker. This light text here, this light gray text has gotten a lot darker. So I think that's probably something that most of us face as we get older. Our eyes get a little bit worse, and we're going to have to turn this on at some point. I think so. For the Bitcoin Design Guide, we actually also had, and I don't want to call it bitter, but it was not the most productive conversation, also about text contrast. It's something that designers constantly deal with. So and it comes up regularly. So I think designers are just very sensitive to visuals, and we look at screens. We probably have, I have a nice Mac screen here. I have a nice iPhone screen that can render very good contrast. Someone might be on a poor device. They might be in a very sunny environment where they just can't see contrast that well on their device. So there are all kinds of different reasons why sometimes you want to have more, sometimes less contrast, sometimes at night, sometimes at day. And screens are pretty good at already figuring out what environment you're in and adjusting a little bit. But some people just need more contrast due to their eyesight, due to the environment. I think there was actually a thing that came up last year or so where there was scanning QR codes in very bright environment was an issue, just because the contrast and glare, and it just didn't, the other cameras just couldn't pick it up the right way. Yeah, so that's it. You can just, it allows your designers to just have nice light gray text. And then, if someone wants to use more contrast, they can just beef that up, and you just increase, you just move everything towards the darker or the stronger contrast realm. I'm not sure if the green here, it probably also gets adjusted. And man, I think I saw something on CSS Tricks recently. So CSS Tricks is this super helpful website that I use constantly for these types of things. And I feel like there was actually a way to specify colors in websites where you specify the color and you can pass in some type of contrast number. And I think that's how it was. And if you have something like that, then you could have just a variable somewhere in your CSS, and then just adjust the variable, and then automatically the colors get adjusted. I think it was something I just saw and kept in the back of my mind, but I wanted to look into. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that, Christoph.
Christoph mentioned a really important point as well, which I'd like to just briefly mention, because that's also something that came up as well. The QR code in almost, well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, Christoph, but I think in almost all of the wallets that we tested, there was not a single wallet that provided any feedback with a QR code, that there was actually a QR code on the screen. So you can imagine that if a blind person has the QR code on the screen in front of them, they wouldn't actually know that there's something that they can do something with. There was no feedback, there was no labels with any of the QR codes. So that would be a really very small, low-lying fruit that would make a very big difference. It's just letting blind or visually impaired users know, there's a QR code on your screen right now. You can do something with it. So
yes, please. And if you're a React Native developer or React developer, please chip in. I've tried to figure out how to fix this in Blue Wallet, but I just don't know technically how to do it. I asked some React Native developers that I know if it would be difficult. They said like, no, should not be difficult at all. It's probably just a couple lines of text or code. But I couldn't find anyone yet who actually wants to fix this. But I think that's a really good one. Like, make sure it's selectable. When you select it, have it read out something like, QR code of invoice or address or something. When you tap it, just copy it and say, let's just copy it to your clipboard. So if someone wants to help with that one, I would really appreciate it. That is pretty much all applications at this.
And once again, we don't know the solutions to these problems because, I'm not a developer, but, if you guys can figure out the solutions and let us know what the solutions are, that would be really helpful. So we can share it with the rest of the community, So if one of you figure out how to solve the QR code one, please share it with us so we can share it with the rest of the community so they can, solve it as well.
And getting back to the prefers contrast, I said earlier I was going to look into Bitcoin Design Guide, the website. This might actually be a really good thing to look into to support on the website. I haven't dug super deep into this prefers contrast, but I might if you're interested more in that specific one, I'd be interested in looking into that as well today.
Sorry, one more point that comes to mind is there's two aspects with I'm just on the QR code thing now, so my brain won't let it go. But with the QR code, you have two things when the QR code is actually showing up on your screen. So letting them know you have a QR code on your screen, you can interact with it. And the second thing is actually scanning a QR code. So when you have your camera open and you're scanning one, that's also something else as well, is letting a blind user know, your camera is now open and you can actually, you can now scan, click here, you can scan. So those would be two things we'd really love to learn from you guys because, I don't know what the solution is to that.
Yeah, cool. Bas, should we talk about your topic?
Yeah, would you mind doing this without recording, though, if I may ask? So we
sure.
at least wrap this one up and do this on a separate path, so to say.
Yeah, no problem at all. How's everyone else? Everyone good? Do you have any more questions? Anything you wanted to ask, or should we just kind of take it off into separate calls and discuss on Discord? We have an accessibility
I
channel
do
in
want to add
Discord.
something. If I may break you up for a second, I want to say thank you for doing this and inviting everyone in the Bitcoin community to join you in this mission to make this better. So from us as BTC server, I want to say thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. And hopefully this is the last Accessibility Awareness Day we'll ever need, because by next year, everything will be fixed. Right?
That's big hopes, but I'll be here in supporting from BTC Pay server side though to make sure we at least move to a better place. But if we do happen to do it next year, I'm sure we as BTC Pay server are happy again to support and help where we can. So
Awesome.
from my side.
Awesome, appreciate it. If we can replace the whole world's money and financial system, I think this is like something we can do on the side. We can get it.
Should we just, to move on to the Bas's enthusiastic, do you just want to, we kind of wrap this one up and then we stay on the same link,
Mhm.
and then we just, continue with the momentum, if that feels good for everyone. For you, Bas, for BTC Pay.
Okay.
Cool.
Then if anyone's not interested, thank you for joining. Feel free to hop off, discuss in Slack, talk on Twitter, Nostr, wherever you want. And I'll stop the recording here. For anyone who watched this video later on, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in.